I'm David Herring, and welcome to another edition of ProviderSMART, brought to you by CNSG and AppSmart Company. Today, we have my good friend with Expedient, John McKenna. John, how are you?
Great, man. How you doing?
I'm doing good. We got some good stuff to talk about, a couple of big wins that we've done with the CNSG team recently, some resources we want to talk to our partners and the community about. But first, let's talk a little bit about football. The Cleveland Browns, your Cleveland Browns, have started out pretty good this year. Is this good or what?
It's awesome. I'm not sure what to think. You know, we always laugh about it. I mean, the last time that the Browns were this record or whatever, and I'm thinking, I remember that the rest of the season didn't wind up as well. So this is pretty exciting. We're just enjoying some good times here, which has been fantastic. I'm not used to it.
Yeah. No, and believe me, I'm a Buffalo guy, so I'm a New York guy. I got my teams are going good, not great. But yeah, I just jinxed it. So now Cleveland might not make the playoffs, right?
I didn't want to say too much about it, but I won't go into too much detail. But I do have a friend that's a lifelong friend that's going to have the biggest Super Bowl party if the Browns actually make it because of all of the commitments and promises he's made over the years.
Nice. Yeah, that's cool. You got that. There's a soft spot in our heart for some of the Cleveland fans.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Let's get started a little bit here. Let's talk a little bit about Expedient, but first, let's talk a little bit about you. I think one of the cool things about you is where you started from, and that you had your own agency at one point. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I actually got into the cloud business, probably 10 or 12 years ago. I started up a cloud business inside of a wholesale long distance carrier here in Columbus. We had network going across the country, so we used that as our backbone, and our data centers as where we housed it. And after a couple of years of that, just seeing what was going on in the cloud space, I decided to go out on my own and was doing, had a company doing cloud computing consulting. And we started out just fee-based consulting. But as things started to transition from people really trying to understand if cloud would ever be an option to them to actually, widespread adoption, I started to add, providers, into my portfolio where I was an agent for some master agents, just like what you guys provide. So a lot of familiarity with what it's like going into those organizations and talking to them and, understand what they're going through and trying to add value and make money along the way.
Yeah. And that helps so much. I mean, I think that somebody who recognizes what we go through every day, what you have to go through every day to get that sale and convince somebody. It's, to talk through to a CTO or an IT director about a solution. That's really cool. Okay, let's talk a little bit about Expedient. What do you do for them? What's your role there?
So I'm our vice president of strategic initiatives, which has meant a number of things since I started. Actually, we opened up the Phoenix market last year with a big win that we'll mention here later. So built a team out there, and then also at the same time started up our enterprise sales team. And while we were doing that, we started to have some success with some partners in the Midwest with a little bit of a different approach as far as not only positioning at the organizational level with spiffs and promotions and all that kind of stuff, programming, but also really working with their field sellers and their field engineers to identify opportunities. So just a few months ago, we ended up taking over the whole channel organization and putting the two groups together, and we've been doing that since. So that's my primary responsibility right now is our channel partners.
Yeah, that's awesome. So tell us 2 or 3 things that Expedient really excels at. What are the 2 or 3 go-tos that we want our partners to know about?
Yeah, so our background is networking, so we still have a lot of that into our products. Our core products are enterprise cloud computing, and we also own data centers across the country, so we do co-location. So we're doing a lot of business in the cloud space, primarily starting around business continuity and disaster recovery, but also doing production workloads on a VMware based virtualized infrastructure platform, as well as we have a cloud native platform. So we have Kubernetes as a service, and we also overlay Rancher as a service on top of that to help customers with that multi-cloud strategy and making that a reality.
Yeah. And I just got done a couple of weeks ago. Devin and I talked to AJ Kuftik with your engineering team. It was really impressive what you guys are able to do. So you talked a little bit about, the 2 or 3 things we want to go after. I would be like, that's the low hanging fruit, right? That's what we want to start the conversations with.
Yeah, there's a couple things. I mean, business continuity is top of mind. It's also one of those solutions that customers are a little bit more comfortable outsourcing. It's not high value, it's not necessarily strategic, but it has to get done and it has to work. So, that's a, pretty easy entry point. And then, the other thing we're seeing is there's been this huge cloud first push. And, people have, really tried to get as much of their workloads into, providers like AWS and Azure and Google. And those are great places, but, legacy applications aren't built to run there. And so when customers have moved those without refactoring applications and without having a business driver, sometimes their experience has been less than what they wanted. So we see a big migration back out of those hyperscalers, and they're still growing, right? There's still new workloads being built there and moving there, but we're seeing a lot of those legacy applications move back into people's data centers. And, the reason that cloud started was people thought, I don't make my own electricity anymore. I don't generate that stuff myself. I get it from my provider. And, that's what cloud computing is. So we have an opportunity to work with, all those legacy applications, which, a lot of times will make up 70 to 90% of a customer's application groups. So those are, DR and production for that are great.
Yeah, great point. And before we get to a couple of wins that you had with the CNSG AppSmart team, we're in the midst of a pandemic right now. It looks like the first part of 2021 is going to grind on a little bit. I think this is probably, in a bad and a good way, kind of made the conversation about DR, about some of these cloud solutions a little bit easier. I think the CTOs, the IT directors are more open to talking with you about this stuff, right? Because it's kind of top of mind because of the pandemic.
Yeah. Well, I would sit on VMUG user groups, happy hours with the group out of Atlanta, and they were like, this pandemic's taken away the last excuse we had for using cloud. But, risk mitigation's big. One of our market vice presidents out in Phoenix had a great point. She said, I've been talking to my customers about what's it like being a frontline worker, an essential employee. And they are, the people in the IT organization are still having to go into the office or the data center to do their work. And, that's exposing organizations to risk. So, we're starting to see more, conversations, certainly because of the pandemic and everything that it's brought up.
I like to say I had a good meeting this morning with our VP, Randy Friedberg, and one of our partners. And that CTO talked about, it's the oxygen in the room. It's the IT is driving everything because of the pandemic. So it's good and bad, but the main thing is it's put IT a bigger priority for everybody.
100%.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Let's talk a little bit. You actually have a couple of cool wins that we were talking about earlier in healthcare and gov ed, academics with actual CNSG AppSmart. Can you talk a little bit about both those, maybe how we got them?
Yeah. So one of them, the first one was they're a healthcare software as a service provider. And our partner was managing their network for them. And about 3 months prior to us getting brought in by them, the customer had an outage on their infrastructure side. And being a SaaS, the infrastructure is their product, right? That's what the software runs on. So they had a hard outage for a period of time. And so they were talking to their partner about, DR requirements. So they brought us in. And it started out as a $50,000 a month, DR only conversation. But as we were meeting with the leadership and understand what they were looking for, they wanted business continuity. So, what we came back and told the partner was, look, we can give them a DR quote, but what they're really looking for is this turnkey production and fully managed DR, so it all works together and they can outsource, get that off their plates. And, it was about $160,000, $170,000 proposal. And the partner was like, they're going to crap. You can't tell them that. Yeah. And we said, well, we're still going to present what they wanted, but this is just an option. And if they say no, they say no. So we went in and presented, what that meant to their business as far as having that, fully managed production and business continuity solution. And the leaders were like, 160, 170, that's not bad. And the partner rep said, no, I didn't think it was bad at all either. So, we started out with about $160,000 contract. They're billing about $190,000 more, just some of the stuff that they've added. So it's been a great solution for them. And again, their business runs on it. So knowing that they can run that stuff and that they don't have to manage it, their infrastructure people are now focused on redeveloping their application that they serve to the business and providing more features than what they do right now. So it's been a win-win for them.
Our sales engineer is Dave Hopper, and he works with a lot of your folks. And he says that all the time to me. He's like, David, you need to ask this question. You don't know. You don't know what you don't know.
And that's the same thing, when I was, doing my thing, it was good to bring in providers that could, get a little bit deeper, provide some additional technical oversight and make good recommendations, because that made me look good. So, that's what we do. And, we'll be as, heavily involved or as little involved as you'd like. I mean, when we can meet with the customers with you, that always makes, for a better opportunity, because we will look for, things beyond what the initial scope is. And it doesn't mean that we have to, blow up the size of a deal, but a lot of times the value that we can add is some other things that we might tie in, whether it's now or 3 to 5 years down the road. And a lot of times that's what differentiates us from our competition and helps our partners win more deals.
Yeah, I tell every single one of my partners that, and some of them are more transactional, but I say, hey, we got to ask these questions, because they're going to get that solution from somebody, and then go to John, and let's bring John in here. Let's have him bring his team in and talk through it.
Well, the other example I wanted to talk to is kind of that point. We had a client that, had to get out of their data center. They had about 500 racks of gear, and they'd been trying to get out of that data center for a few years. And they'd done everything from trying to move things to AWS and Azure to what they finally did is they spent about $5 or $7 million on hyper-converged infrastructure to try to migrate their apps from the old aging stuff that they had to the new, so they could get it into a new facility. And they were failing miserably. So what we did is we came in and we started working with them and had a plan of getting all of that out of there. About 12,000 virtual machines, a couple thousand physical servers that we migrated to virtual machines. They had legacy mainframe, networking, security infrastructure they moved. And so they put that into our data center right next to our cloud availability zone. So, it was a great solution, but it was all going along swimmingly, and the CIO was ready to move forward. And one of his people came and said, look, we haven't been able to move these applications at all. So, before we sign this agreement, we probably ought to reconsider this. So we actually flew our engineers in on Monday. That conversation happened on Friday, and started working with them to understand what those limitations were. And they gave us access to those applications. And within about 45 minutes, we'd moved the 3 hardest ones that they hadn't been able to migrate. So, it was a great win. We actually signed the contracts in June. We're provisioning their services in August, and in 9 months had everything moved out of that data center. So, it was a huge success for them, and, avoided just their data center rates and some of those things going through the roof, which they were trying to avoid.
And think about that again, that was a partner just bringing you guys into the loop. Here an objection came up. Let's talk it through. Let's talk through how we can help you.
They were aware of the problem, right? And they knew that there was an opportunity for somebody to do something. So yeah, we were alerted, and we were able to understand what was going on, what needed to happen. And oh, by the way, not only did we get them out of their data center, but we reduced their IT operational expenses by about 35%. Yeah. So the payoff was huge, but we wouldn't be aware of that opportunity if it wasn't for our partners.
Yeah. No, great stuff. And I'll talk a little bit about some resources on our side, and then I'll throw that back to you on your side. But on our side, we have myself, Matt Hardy, Tyler, any of our managing partners across the country. We have Dave Hopper. We're here to help you find, buy, manage these types of solutions, through Expedient and any of our partners. But tell us some resources that you have on your side.
Well, so we've got a great team of solution architects. We also have a bunch of overlay and product folks. So, you have access to the entire group. And when somebody brings us a referral lead, we accept one referral partner at a time. So if we can register an opportunity with you, you've got access to all of those people. So, a lot of times that looks like is an initial discovery call with you, just to make sure we understand the scope of an opportunity and see if we're a fit or not. And then the next step is, setting up a client call with you guys so that we can, have a conversation with the customer. So, typically one of our salespeople, as well as one of our solution architects, and then based on what the requirements are, we'll bring in the specialists that we need for the security, the DR, whatever it is that we're talking about with them.
John, we really appreciate your time. We appreciate everything that you, Devin Cole, your team does for us. On behalf of the CNSG AppSmart team and the Cleveland Browns, thank you for your time today.
No, David, thank you. And if that jinxes the Browns, I'm not going to be happy about it. But no, thank you guys. I mean, like we talked about, your partners are key to our success. We have a big focus on growing our partner revenue again this year. So I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you guys and all the support you guys give us. It's much appreciated. Thank you.